So this is the last time you'll see me up here, I promise. I don't know what we were thinking. So I work at the Smithsonian's National Zoo, and part of the mission statement for the Smithsonian and for the National Zoo is the increase and diffusion of knowledge. And with the National Zoo, they're also interested in conservation. That's in their mission statement. So I've been lucky that both facilities, or both institutions, have been very supportive of me going out and doing the capacity building. They provide funding and also the time off from work in order to do it. So funding sources have been National Zoo, the EEHV Consortium, which is the U.S. zoos that hold young elephants, pay a yearly membership fee to the EEHV Consortium. And with that money, we provide the monitoring weekly or twice weekly, and also unlimited diagnostics. So some of that money is then also used for some research or the capacity building. And then also the U.S. State Department and several Asian groups, Wildlife Reserve Singapore, Passatsart University, Zoological Parks of Thailand have contributed. Asian Elephant Support is here. IEF has been a huge supporter. Game Rangers International, they're also here today, and IFOC also here today. So this is the countries that I've been involved with, either actual trips there to provide training, reagents, equipment, or maybe I have trained somebody who has then gone to the other countries to do some training. So it's just, we've tried to cover a lot of the countries in Asia that have the elephants. So considerations that we look at before we decide who we're going to work with. A big thing is what's there already. If we can find a group that already has lab equipment, or at least a lab, or if we can set them up, you know, in a partnership with a local government lab or university lab, we think that that's going to be more sustainable. So existing capacity either there or nearby is great. They have to have personnel involved. You know, I can teach a vet how to do the testing, but vets are too busy to be in the lab testing. They need to have technical staff, you know, like me, available to do the testing for them. We look at, you know, a research record that they might have. Do they have access to funding after we do the training? You know, we can provide funding to get the training started, but will they have more funding to keep going, you know, for the sustainability? How many elephants are in the country? Their access to the elephants. You know, there may be 1 million elephants, or, you know, 10,000 elephants, but if they don't have access to them, either hands-on or administratively, it's not going to matter if they can test. And then also the value of the data collected. So the first group that I got involved with was in India about 10 years ago. We worked with Dr. Erin Latimer, who works for the Kerala Wildlife, or the Kerala Forestry Department. And he works mainly at Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. So we did 2 trips, and then Paul's group also did a couple trips. One of his postdocs was on one of my trips, and then they went back. So we were able to fund equipment, reagents, and training for Dr. Zachariah. So if you look at the left, what we started with, he had a small house that he was able to convert into a lab. He had 2 small rooms. We were able to bring over just some basic equipment, conventional PCR, and some serology. Although the serological test we were doing at the time wasn't a great one, there was too much cross-reactivity. You know, Paul's new assay is going to be much better. And his lab was just EEHV focused at the time. He was able to leverage what we got him started with to get much more money from his government. So now he has 5 rooms, you know, beautiful lab. He can do conventional and qPCR now. He can do biochem, hematology, or hematology. He can test for other diseases, not just EEHV. So it's now, I think he calls it the Wildlife Research Lab. He's done some testing and work with Myanmar and Sumatra, so he's become a real resource for the other Asian countries that don't have their own testing. He's got 2 papers published, including the first paper that showed that EEHV is in the wild in the Asian range countries. And he's got 3 more papers in review. And he's done some follow-up training. In addition to testing samples from Myanmar and Sumatra, he also went to those countries and provided training, in their own labs. And he also did a elephant and tiger workshop at his facility. So I think he's really become a resource for India, and he comes to a lot of our meetings. Another trip that I did was to Borneo. People had always kind of thought, well, maybe Borneo doesn't have EHV, it hadn't been seen before, and as it's an island, it's possible maybe they don't have it. Until I think in 2016, they lost 3 calves within a couple of weeks. They have a lab there, very nicely equipped lab, that's a collaboration between the Sabah Wildlife Department, Eco Health Alliance, and the Danau Jurang Field Center. So they tested for EHV in the lab. They only do conventional right now, but they were able to diagnose EHV in 3 calves. So they went to the U.S. State Department and asked if I could go over to help them do a little bit more testing. So the State Department actually funded my trip there in 2017. Not sure if you have more? No. So out of that, I brought reagents over to do sequencing of 8 more genes. They had just done 1 gene to do the diagnosis. So we sequenced 8 more genes, proved that yes, it was the same strain that infected all 3 calves, which we had expected. But we also got a lot of sequence data and discovered that this Bornean strain is quite different than the strains found in the rest of the Asian states that we've seen. So there's a paper in preparation for that. So then in 2017, the EEHV Asia Working Group wanted a lot more training to go on. So we decided to do an international workshop that was a train the trainers format. So we got together with Superfen Superboon, who's here, who's going to be talking at some point, I think. And we developed this workshop in Thailand at her university, at Kasetsart University. We also got funding from Zoological Parks of Thailand, Asian Elephant Support, Wildlife Reserve Singapore, and we had 12 participants come from 5 countries. Most of them had already had some kind of lab experience, but had never done EHV PCR. So as I said, we did the train the trainers format, so hopefully the people who are trained at this workshop will be able to go into other Asian countries and do more training to kind of spread the love. So we did lecture and lab, ran through just the basic stuff, DNA preps of the samples, conventional and qPCR, how to analyze results. And then we provided the reagents for all the participants to bring home so they could continue testing at home. So then Anne did some more follow-up training within Thailand. One of her trainings, she had 24 participants, and they came from a variety of elephant care people, zoo people, wildlife people, National Elephant Institute, so a wide breadth of people were at her training. And I think now Thailand might have 9 labs capable of testing for EHV, which is by far the most of any country in the world. So they are just ready. So one of our people that was at the Thai workshop, Chadas Tu from Singapore, went to Sumatra and he did a training there, similar format to what we had done in Thailand, lecture lab, going through all the samples. He trained 4 participants there, and it's functional, but unfortunately they have some manpower issues. They don't have the technical help to be doing the stuff, but hopefully that will be improved in the future. So next steps, we're looking at a few countries that we want to help, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and then eventually Vietnam. So in Myanmar, we've got a great proposal. We're trying to get funding to set up a lab at MTE because they have the 5,000 elephants that were used for the timber enterprise, which have now been retired. So they have a lot of elephants. They do have EHV there. So we're hoping to help MTE set up a lab for research and diagnostics. Then in Sri Lanka, one of our participants, Vijitha Pereira, we are hoping to help him with some more training. I think Anne is going to be going. and to do some more training and testing. In Nepal, I'm working with Amir Sagala. He's at MTNC, which is right outside Chitwan. He has a really nice lab. He can do conventional PCR. We're hoping to get him some qPCR. We have funding. We're about 2/3 of the way to getting him funding for the qPCR. And he was one of our people that was trained at the Thai workshop. And then in Vietnam, we haven't really started anything yet, but at some point, eventually, we're hoping to work with Fayetteville on getting them some testing capacity. So now, this is something that I'm slightly involved in. AZA has the Elephant Safe program, which I talked about a little bit before. Here's the program leaders. They have partners with a bunch of different groups, Fish and Wildlife, Riddles, IEF, the Sumatran people at Aceh, African Lion Safari, the advisory group, a couple zoos, and then Dr. Zachariah from India. And they have 3 objectives, but the one that I'm involved with, just a little bit, they're doing EEHV support in range countries. And what that means is they would like to raise funds to provide famciclovir, acyclovir, whatever's needed for the range countries. We're concentrating on Sumatra, Myanmar, Nepal, Vietnam, to provide drugs and medications, lab capacity, and mobile capacity. And they're doing that by doing fundraisers among AZA zoos. I think there's already been a couple fundraisers, so they have, I think, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 that they've already been able to raise. This just started about a year ago. So we're hoping to help out in the Asian range countries.